everybody, welcome to today's episode. Today is the third in our holiday series, and this is going to be our last episode focusing on the holidays, because then we're going to be getting into our special dinner episode that I've been sharing with you. But today we are going to be talking about holiday traditions, and one of my favorite traditions is making the holiday wreath. So I'm going to share some of my kind of tips and tricks on how I do wreaths. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk a bit about some of the holiday traditions that I grew up with, and some of the traditions that were so just important to me and my family. So first of all, we always had multiple Christmas trees. Mom always wanted to have variety and wasn't afraid to do more than one. So that was kind of one of the traditions that I did grow up with. But one of the things I loved so much was every year we would make a special ornament for that year. So one year it was bread dough. One year it was beaded ornaments. One year we did eggs, where you blow out an egg and then you decoupage on it and roll it in, like the diamond dust kind of glitter to make the ornament. So I always looked forward to whatever the year's ornament was going to be. Another thing that was very prevalent, Mom liked nutcrackers, so we always had like a nutcracker display. But the biggest thing I will always remember were Santa Clauses. And at one point, I grew up with a grand piano in our living room. At one point, I think we literally had like close to 100 Santas on the grand piano. I will never forget that. And another holiday favorite was the Christmas village. We always had all the different little houses and the characters and the people, and eventually we built this big stand that was on either side of our front door, kind of on our closed-in porch, so that when guests arrived to the house, we had the Christmas village on both sides of the door to welcome guests. So anyway, there was a lot of love and a lot of thoughtfulness that went into the holidays in my house. And really, as I'm saying, what we're talking about is creating traditions. So I hope you've enjoyed our past episodes. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out since our fragrance episode. We've had a really great response to our holiday home fragrancing. Really great comments, lots of interaction with that. So thank you for that. But hopefully, each of these episodes have been inspiring to you, and perhaps you will find your own holiday tradition to share with your family from one of our episodes. So now, let's have some fun making a wreath. All right, let's make a wreath, shall we? Okay. The first thing I like to do when I'm thinking about creating a holiday wreath, or really when I'm thinking about any type of a design project, you've got to have your inspiration or your point of departure. So I was in Walmart actually a couple of weeks ago because I was getting ready for a yard sale. I had a big yard sale last weekend. And I was thinking, I should go ahead and pick up a few things for the wreath episode. And then I just kind of decided, you know what? I'm going to get everything here. And this is kind of be like a Walmart story about how you can take some kind of cost-effective elements and put them into creating something like really fabulous. So I was looking in the ornament aisle and I found these. So these little cowboy boot ornaments are from Walmart, and I fell in love with these, and I was like, okay, this is going to be my inspiration for the wreath. So I'm kind of taking a thematic inspiration, but then I'm also using them as my color inspiration. So all the things that I'm using to create the wreath are inspired by these cowboy boot ornaments. So I thought to myself, what can I do with cowboy boots? So then, not too far from where they were hanging was this little guy. So I decided I'm gonna do like a little cowboy toy soldier combo. That's gonna be the focal point of my wreath. And I then decided for the body, instead of doing like an actual body, I found these really cool flowers. They're flower picks. And we're gonna make the body of our cowboy soldier be made out of flowers. So that's kind of the general concept. So I went to the wreath aisle. This is literally the least expensive kind of wreath, because we're gonna use this as a base and we're gonna add to it. We're gonna zhuzh it up so it's got its own character, but we needed like a foundation. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna go ahead and fluff out this wreath as much as possible, make it as nice and full as you can get it. So let's start with that. Okay, so we've got our wreath nice and fluffed out. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of this metallic kind of sparkle netting. It comes on a roll. I'm going to use this and I'm going to kind of like intertwine it around the wreath to give it a little more fullness. But before we do that, I love asymmetry. So our little cowboy boot toy soldier is gonna go on the side of the wreath. So we're gonna leave a space on the side of the wreath where he's gonna go, and we're gonna go ahead and start with our netting and build around the other side of the wreath. So let's get started with that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually wire the ribbon into the wreath so that I can then twist it up and intertwine it around the edge of the wreath. You'll see what I mean. So we'll take a piece of our craft wire and we'll just put it around the end of our netting. And then from there, we're gonna wire it into the base of the wreath. Okay. Once we have our netting anchored, then what we can do is we can take it and we can start giving it a little bit of a twist. Just a little, not a tight twist because we want the fullness. And then from there, we're gonna start wrapping it around our wreath. Okay, so once I got the netting all the way around the wreath, I'm using the same two ends of the wire that I started with to tie the netting off with. So I went ahead and just wrapped those wires around the end of the netting. Now I'm gonna clip those wires with my wire cutters. Be sure and use wire cutters. Don't use your scissors to cut your craft wire. Super tempting, don't do it. So we're gonna cut our wire. And once we've cut our wire, we're gonna trim off the extra of our netting. Don't need that. Perfect. And now we're gonna go back through and just give that netting a little extra fluff so we get the fullness that we want on our wreath. So there we go. Okay, so now that we have the netting put into our wreath, we're actually gonna set the wreath aside, and we are going to pre-make some bows that we're going to incorporate into the wreath. So this is the bow that we're going to be making. This is one of my favorites, super easy to make. I know there's always like the mystery of making a bow, but this is like, for me, this one is fail-safe. It looks great, it gives lots of volume, and it's a great way to bring in like color or whatever other elements of kind of like design and texture that you want into the wreath. So what we do is, for this size of bow, which is kind of like the right scale for our wreath, let me go ahead and I'll fluff the tails out so you can see kind of how the finished bow looks. And just a quick reminder, remember I told you that our cowboy boot ornament is kind of our inspiration for the wreath. So that's why I picked these colors for the ribbon to go with the cowboy boot ornament. So with this particular bow, what you're going to do for this size, you're gonna pre-cut some pieces of ribbon. These are right at 16 inches long. Now, I'm gonna do a version of this bow. This involves using 5 strips of ribbon. So I've decided to use 3 of the pink and 2 of the red. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna lay your pieces of ribbon on top of each other, and I'm gonna alternate. So I'm gonna start with the pink, and this is wired ribbon. Then the red with the polka dots, super fun. Love those dots. Then another pink. Kind of hold them together there. Then our second red. And like I said, they just go right on top of each other. And then finally, our last pink. Like I said, I decided to do 3 pink and 2 red. You can do this bow with 3 pieces of ribbon instead of 5, but you know, why would you? I love it, like a fuller bow. Okay, so now we've got all of our ribbons stacked on top of each other. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab my scissors, and we're just gonna go ahead and angle off. Make sure the ends of your ribbons are lined up. And we're gonna go ahead and cut all of those at an angle. So we have a nice angular tip on the pieces of ribbon at the end. Do that on both ends. So go back to here. Same thing, just kind of angle off the end of the ribbon, just like that. And once you've got that done, then you're just gonna fold this exactly in half. Okay, so now we've got it in half. Then you're gonna just come exactly halfway down, and you're gonna take a piece of your craft floral wire, and we're gonna go ahead and wrap that around the middle of the bow. I like to start, you know, with a piece about this long, leave myself probably 5 or 6 inches. That way, when we're done wrapping, we'll have equal amounts of wire on either side of the bow, and we can use that to secure it to the wreath. So we'll go ahead and pull that together, wrap that wire around, get it nice and tight, just like that. Perfect. And then once we have the wire secured around the bow, then we're just gonna go ahead and pull those pieces of ribbon out. And like I said, this is why you wanna use a wired ribbon, because then it allows you to be able to shape it. So we do that. So we start getting it like this. Like I said, we want it kind of nice and full. And then once you've done that, then you can fluff out those tails. And there's twice as many tails as there are loops. Remember, because we fold the ribbon over. So that allows us to get that really nice fullness on the bow. Okay, so we've got our 3 bows made that we're gonna be using on the wreath. Our wreath is back. So the first thing we're going to do is I found these awesome little picks. I love these. We're gonna go ahead and layer these in. These are gonna continue to give us some volume on our wreath. And so just to remind you, kind of when I was talking at the beginning, this area on the side is where our cowboy boot toy soldier element is gonna go. And like I said, I like it on the side. I like asymmetry, but we're gonna go ahead and fill in the rest of the wreath. So we're gonna start with these little picks. And what we're gonna do is you can actually use stems from the wreath to solidify these, but I'm gonna reinforce with hot glue because I'm gonna leave this wreath as it is forever. So I want a more permanent application. I don't want these coming out. So I'm gonna put each of these picks right at the base of where our wrap of the netting goes around the wreath. So they're gonna come up and kind of overlap just a little bit. So I'm gonna find the 2 stems that I'm gonna use to secure that with. So I found those. So now I'm gonna go ahead and load the base of my little pick up with hot glue. Lots of hot glue there. We don't want that coming out. Hot glue is our best friend. And then I'm gonna layer that in here, just like this. And then I'm gonna go ahead and twist 2 of the stems of the wreath around the pick, which will kind of give it just a little extra security. So that's going to hold that in place right there. So like I said, I'm doing one of these picks at the base of each of the areas where the netting comes around the wreath. So let's go ahead and put our other 2 in. Okay, so we've got our 3 picks secured right at the base of where each of the netting wraps around the wreath. We're going to take our last 2 picks, and again, this is the area where our toy soldier is going to go. We're going to take our last 2 picks and we're going to put one at the bottom and one at the top, kind of framing the area where our toy soldier is going to go. Let's do that. Okay, so we've got our 3 picks in on the side, and then we've got our 2 picks that are going to frame our cowboy toy soldier. Now we're going to take the 3 bows that we just made and we're going to anchor them right at the base of each of these pick sprays. And what this is going to do is it's going to pull a little more color to the other side of the wreath and give us a little bit more texture. So let's do that next. So with securing the bows, again, I'm going to do 2 things. As I mentioned, you want to leave your wire on the bow that we tied it off with. We'll use this wire to tie it into the wreath, but then I also like to take a couple of stems of the wreath and just overlap it over the top and kind of twist it in just to secure the bow, making sure it doesn't come out. Okay, so now that we've got our bows anchored by each of our little picks that we put in, and also now that we have the bows on the wreath, you can see how you can really fan out the tails. So like I said, there's twice as many pieces of the tail part of the bow as there are the loops. So that really gives us some nice volume. That's why I love using that type of bow. So now we've got our little ball ornaments. We're going to go ahead and hot glue some ball ornaments to the center of each of the bows. And again, bringing in a little more color and a little more texture. Let's do that. All right, so this finishes out the body portion of our wreath. Now we're gonna create our little cowboy wooden soldier. So as I said, these were my inspiration for the overall feel of the wreath. So now we're gonna anchor these in and create the focal point. Okay, so once again, hot glue is going to be our friend. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna use the little ring on the ornament to wire it into the wreath. And again, I'll use a little bit of our craft floral wire to do that. So I'm gonna wire the 2 boots in, then I'm gonna use hot glue to stabilize and position them. So let's do that. Okay, so for the head of our little soldier, instead of using the ornament loop that's kind of on the top, because that doesn't really position it to hold it into the wreath, I'm actually going to do a piece of wire just around the ornament itself and then anchor it in with that wire. So that's how we're going to do that. So like I said, I wrapped a wire around his head and then I tied it off in the back, and then we'll use this to anchor it to the wreath. So as you can see, we've got our toy soldier head here, we've got our cowboy boots here, and as I mentioned, we're gonna use these really fun flowers, fabric flowers, to kind of create what would be the body. So let's put those in. So here we go, the finished wreath. As I said, we took our inspiration from the cowboy boot ornaments. We let them inspire us with our color choices and with the materials that we used. Always remember, when you go to create something like this, you want to follow your heart, don't be afraid, and most importantly, have fun. Hopefully this will give you some ideas for creating even more traditions for your holidays. I hope this was inspiring for you. So I hope that gave you some inspiration for creating your own wreath for the holidays. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and be sure and stay tuned for next week's episode where we're starting the background of our collaborations on the holiday dinner we're going to be having here at the house. And then ultimately, I'm looking forward to sharing with you that entire dinner experience. So, we'll not only be talking about the holidays, but we'll be talking about our warm welcome, magic moments, and fond farewells, all the things that make hosting, especially for the holidays, great. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week.
When you like you do, when you've laid your